Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is CL King, and I am delighted to be with you in a much more dynamic capacity than I have been in times past. I am joining Miss Bettina Carey as her co-host this morning for the quarterly We Empower You Summit. Now, there's something about when people can come together, even virtually, to use synergy and collaboration to really go to the next level that we all want to do. And I am delighted because in my role this morning, in the capacity that I get to fill for these next few moments, I get to introduce to you the lady behind all of the greatness that we see going on. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. Miss Bettina Carey, as you guys know her, she is the diminutive 4'9.5" Latina, and she inspires and empowers women to create big, gigantic, huge results. They break through. This is what she says. No, don't say breakthrough anymore. They shatter their earnings glass ceilings. They kick self-imposed limitations to the curb and live their legacies now. Now, Bettina, she is high energy. You got to take your vitamin B, C, and D to keep up with her. But when she's not coaching or when she's not doing a virtual event on stage or conferencing with a small cohort of women, she is helping people rise above their challenges. Her championship strategies and straight talk compel women and men to find a whole new gear to succeed beyond their wildest imaginations. Bettina's forthcoming book, which I am going to get an autographed copy of, Shattering Your Own Glass Ceiling, Unlocking Your Inner Power and Hidden Potential with Your Master Key, is being written during COVID-19. Guess what? She's got it done, and she's done it even in the midst of a pandemic. She's a well-known business savvy woman. She's got a great leadership mind. And more than all of that, because we can heap accolades on Bettina all day, I looked at her resume and I just said, I don't feel worthy to introduce this lady. But more importantly, she is in the business, y'all, of empowerment. Now, when you can get someone that says, listen, I'm not going to hold all the power to myself, but I'm going to train and teach people how to have that power that gets me through that glass ceiling. That's somebody we want to connect with. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your virtual hands together for my friend and sister, the one and only Miss Bettina Carey. Welcome, Bettina.
Thank you so very much. It's so great to be here today. I am so thrilled to have you also hosting with me this wonderful We Empower You Global Virtual Summit. And it's September the 8th. It's a Wednesday, and this is our 6th summit. So thank you so much, CL, for joining me here today. And we're going to be talking about the shattering the revenue glass ceiling. That is all that I'm about these days. So yes. Take it away. I'm here to answer anything you have to ask.
Well, Bettina, time really flies when you and I get together. As you know, it just seems like when we start talking. So I'm going to get right to it because I know that we've got a lot of things to get through a 12-hour summit. And you allowing me to be able to kind of interview you to kick this off is the highlight of my illustrious career. So, Bettina, what was your life like before We Empower You?
Well, I actually have been through a lot. Let's just say from a very young age. In high school, I became the victim of domestic violence when I fell in love with my then boyfriend, and who I then married, and he caused the death of my firstborn. And from that very beginning, I started on a road of empowerment. And that's what I've been doing ever since. To empower myself was the very first step, of course. And then along the way, I became an empowerer of others. So that's what I'm here for. That's my mission, my vision, my purpose, and everything I'm passionate about. So we're here to talk about all of that, I assume, right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things why I asked that question is important because oftentimes people see us in our current state And I think it's inspiring to hear that it hasn't always been like this, and you had to have some tenacity. I remember when I interviewed you on my show, didn't you tell me about jumping into like a pool of snakes or something like that to overcome some fear? Didn't you say, wasn't it something along that line?
Well, it's an interesting story because it happened about 3 years ago when I went to Costa Rica, and I
Right.
was there with a friend, and something jumped out of the water suddenly. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and we were like, what the heck was that? And we got out of there as soon as we could. And then we went to the beach and we asked some people, what was that? And they said, oh, that was a snake. And I came to Costa Rica fearing maybe sharks, but I had no idea about the snakes that might be in the water, or the caimans for that matter, or the pythons that might lie on the beach. And so it turned out that particular moment, I realized that that snake represented fear, that false evidence appearing real, right?
Right.
And it disappeared all of the other fears that I had in my life, because I realized in that moment when I discovered that there were snakes in the water, and I had been basking with my head in the water and had been enjoying myself for days, unbeknownst to me, where these snakes were in the water. And then I later found out, by the way, that they were poisonous snakes.
Oh my.
But the codicil there was that their mouths were really tiny, and the likelihood of getting bit and dying was pretty small. Right. So for about a day and a half, I could not actually go on the beach and go into the water rather. And I found one of these snakes lying on the beach dying. And I realized, oh yeah, those snakes, they have really tiny mouths. They couldn't do anything to me. So the very next day I was able to go in. And that's what fear can do with us, right? It can paralyze us, right, and stop us or block us from success. And this is just another example of how the inner workings of the mind can keep us from, being and living into our full potential. So I'm here to say that what I'm doing is unlocking that hidden potential with my master key. And I'm here to help others to do the same, because most of what goes on in the world about the glass ceiling, the revenue ceiling in particular, has a lot more to do with ourselves. We are our own worst jailers, right? Not the outside world. And although there are outside world factors like me growing up as a woman, and graduating in the 70s and having only, no college education mind in my parents' mind, or no, college education in my teachers' minds, and ending up in a field that was very classic for women. At the end of the day, once I overcame all of those outside barriers, the only barrier that I had to really overcome was my mind. And it's still to this very day, the only barrier that I address every single day is mindset.
Man, that's so powerful. I'm thinking, Bettina, sometimes when the sun goes down and I'm in the house by myself, my spidey senses tingle, and I'm just like, what am I getting all nervous about? That really, it's a battle of the mind. And when you realized that you had been swimming with some little mouth snakes, you swam a whole lot differently the next time you got in that water, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's powerful. Overcoming your fear. So one of the things I want to talk about, because I know we got a short amount of time, and it's cool because I'm used to being under the gun when I got to interview somebody. I love it. What have been some of the benefits you've experienced being an entrepreneur all these years?
Well, some of the benefits that I've experienced have to do with the fact that I am always surrounded by a variety of people that seem to be attracted to what I'm doing. And that is my number one strength, is called connectedness. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. And there are literally over hundreds of people that are going to be here today throughout the day. And they're here because they're connected to me first, but they're also connected to others. So that's been one of the biggest benefits of walking this path along the way.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, I am a recipient of that that spirit of connectedness. And Bettina, really, you really do embody that. I mean, I just watched how there was some technical glitches going on in the beginning, and you were so smooth and so good with it. I would absolutely lose my mind. I feel for my poor staff, because when stuff don't go right on our end, I'm going crazy, and you just got it there. And people are drawn to that, Bettina, that spirit of, I want to connect with you, and connections are powerful. So we talk about the glass ceiling of revenue. And I know that a glass ceiling is a metaphor, but it's a reality for many people. But do you find that there are different types of glass ceilings? Let's explain that a little bit so people can understand it.
Yeah, I always say the glass ceilings with an S, because there are many, many glass ceilings. And what's interesting, if your car goes off a bridge and it lands in the water, and you try to actually punch through with your fists or your foot, there's no way that under the pressure of the water that you're actually going to shatter that glass in order to escape. In fact, there's a little tool that you would use to hit just the corner of one of the windows, and it immediately breaks into a million pieces, right? Mm-hmm. And the shattering of glass ceiling has to be done with very careful precision, because we don't always know what it is that's holding us back, right? But it just sits there right over our heads, and we can try to punch through it, but it's much like punching into plexiglass. It just bounces right back. And so what I've discovered is that a lot of the things that bind us, and bind me, I should say, have to do with limitations that I learned at a very young age, adaptations that helped me to survive in domestic violence, helped me to survive in the circumstances in which I was a young girl. And those circumstances predicated how I would behave in the world, but it can also preclude the future for me. Having said that, there are many glass ceilings. We bump into them all the time, almost like bumping into them in the night. Right. And I'll share a really great example. So when I was working recently with Nigel Henry, who goes by Master Nigel Henry as a master teacher, I started this financial miracle challenge with him. And on the Monday, I'm thinking, I'm going to set a pretty lofty goal, but not too much further than I can handle. And I bumped into, within day one and day two, that I had a little bit of a laissez-faire attitude about money and about shattering this particular glass ceiling. And by day three, I realized that I had eaten up 2 days of my financial challenge, and I only had a couple of days left to meet that goal. And I'm very competitive about things when it comes to myself. I compete inside. Right. And so then I left less time to actually achieve the goal. And as soon as I disappeared that glass ceiling, which was like, I'll get that contract next week, it's okay, it's no big deal, all of a sudden I went right for the business, and I closed a lot of business. In fact, it was the highest revenue producing week that I'd had in the history of the company. So those kind of glass ceilings can be sitting on your head, and until somebody puts you to the test, you might not go after the opportunities that lie before you. And now, after having completed the second FMC, the Financial Miracle Challenge, I'm actually going for $1 million day. Get that. I know I can do it. If I achieved 1 week of what is possible, I can achieve $1 million day. I know that to be true.
And, if you achieve that $1 million day, we're getting on a plane and flying out to Seattle, because you said you was going to buy us dinner at that cool restaurant that you go to.
By the way, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? It's a will, right?
That's right.
When you speak the language of intention, when I speak the language of intention, that is when things happen. So get ready for things to be happening.
That's powerful. So do you have time for 2 more questions?
I have time for 1 more.
Okay, she's gonna give me 1 more, ladies and gentlemen, just 1 more. So I'm gonna ask the marquee question. The book, Shattering Your Own Glass Ceiling to Unlock Your Hidden Potential with Your Master Key. What was the genesis behind this book? I really want to get this out in the atmosphere, because everybody's got to get their hands on it. So what kind of helped you and inspired you to write this?
Well, I actually started writing this book about 17 years ago. And at the time, it was called It's a Man's World. And I was in my boohoo, It's a Man's World sort of soapbox.
Right.
And I went to a conference put on by Patrick Snow. And one of the radio announcers there said, you know, what you're really talking about is not It's a Man's World. What you're talking about, it's a myth. The glass ceiling is a myth, that you're really shattering some other things in your life as opposed to the man's world. And with that, I evolved to the title of Breaking Through Your Own Glass Ceiling. Until last year, in June of this last year, through December of 2020, when COVID had reared its ugly head and everybody was crying, you know, in their beer, I decided to shatter a six-figure in 6 months. And I did it with ease, I would say, and with the support and help of many others, including Miss Lee Romanoff, who's here today, and Shay Vaughn, and the team behind the scene, Janet Francis, and Art Johnson, and Tammy Stamps, and Blake Messer, and David, and Larry, and so many people, Ingrid, and Aileen, who helped to really brand all of this. So that's the evolution. And so having shattered that glass ceiling, see, I had a self-imposed limitation in the back of my mind that I could not write a success book if I had not shattered the revenue glass ceiling. And once I did it, then it opened up the doors to changing the title and also to exploring getting it done this year. So this book will be out this year.
Yeah, that's so powerful. What a great thing. Get your copy, ladies and gentlemen. Shattering Your Own Glass Ceiling to Unlock Your Hidden Potential with Your Master Key, written by none other than Miss Bettina Carey. She did tell a falsehood this morning, though. She said she graduated in like 1970 something. She just graduated like 1993 or something. We know the truth. Bettina, just let it out for everybody. Thank you so much, Bettina, for this opportunity to kick off the We Empower You Summit with this great interview, really letting people know what type of person you are, the heart behind what you're doing, and we support you 100%, Bettina. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here for me, of course.